Hello everyone. So in this tutorial I am going to explain you how to use Redux using hooks. So I would assume that you already know what Redux is and what store is, and you have basic knowledge of dispatch function and everything. If you don't know that, then probably this tutorial is not for you. So few points. This is not a beginner tutorials on Redux. It would educate you on how to cleanly implement Redux using hooks and to skip middlewares like Sagas and Thunk, and still be able to achieve the same functionality. It doesn't mean that there is no use of Sagas, but in majority of the projects you can skip Sagas. I assume that you have basic knowledge of Redux and store and the way Redux works, its life cycle, the dispatch function and everything. So if you don't know Redux or the store or the dispatch function, so probably this video is not for you. You might have to go and see some other tutorial. And if you know what this is and you have probably used Redux using connect function, the higher order component, mapStateToProps, mapDispatchToProps, all those things, then this is for you, right? So let's see what functionalities we are going to develop in this tutorial. So we are going to develop two functionalities. So first one is, as you type in, so basically it is a demo component that I have created. So it have two field, name and a product ID, and a div element which is rendering just some dots here. So this is how it would look like. So the functionality that we are going to develop is, as you type in name, it should save the value in store, and then the value at store be visible in the input field. As you type product, it should load the data from the API for the product ID. Show loading while the data is being fetched from the API. If the API call is success, it should show the data retrieved from the API. If the API call returns error, it should show some error message, right? So let's get coding. So here I have created two directories. In the source folder, there is a store directory that will keep all the files and directories related to Redux. And in this, there is one demo directory. So we will create separate reducers for each component. So for this one, I have created a demo. So in demo, we are going to create 4 files. So we will create one by one. So first file would be demo action types. So this file would basically contain all the types of action that we are going to dispatch. So say so we have created 5 different types of actions. So this is update name. So it would update the name, update product ID, update product fetch success, update product fetch failed, update product fetch loading. So we are going to see how we are using this action. The second file that we are going to create is a dispatcher file that would dispatch these actions. So So here's our dispatcher file. So it would so there are 5 type of actions. So you would have 5 dispatch function. So it would dispatch to update name. So it would take a name as a input. So now we need a dispatch object to dispatch this function, right? So let's assume we have a dispatch variable here. So we will see how this variable will come into action. So for now, let's assume we have dispatch. So we are going to just dispatch type update name, and the payload would be name. Similarly, product ID. So similarly, we will create all the dispatcher. So this would take an error if there is a failure. So for the loading part, we are not going to provide any payload. For the success, it's assumed that product name is passed and it's going to dispatch a function to update the product name. For the failure, it expect an error, and for the loading, it don't expect anything, right? So these are our dispatcher functions. Now we will create a new file that would contain our logical actions. So this file would be demo action. So again, we are going to create logical actions here. Now, one important thing here is that we are going to keep all the functions async, so that if we are making any API call or any async function, we can use that inside our async function. So let's say we create one function to update the name. So static async update name, so it takes name and it called a dispatcher function to update the name. Let's import this. Similarly, static async fetch product name from product ID. So we pass in the product ID. Now what it will do is basically it will dispatch an action to update the product ID first. So demo action dispatcher.dispatch update product ID to the product ID. Then this will dispatch action to say that it's loading. Now it will make an API call, so we are going to do that in a try. So we are going to use request API. So this is what we are going to use, request. So if we give the product ID here, so it would fetch a response like this. So we are going to use just this name to show the data, right? So let's do this. Await fetch product ID. So I'm using fetch here. You can use Axios or any other library to retrieve data from API. So if rest.status is double equal to 404, we are going to dispatch an action for the error, and the error would be product not found, else const data is equal to, and we are going to dispatch an action to update product name. The sorry, this is the action dispatcher function name, and this is going to be data dot. So this is inside the data name. So data dot data name. Now in the catch error, we would just dispatch an error saying something went wrong, edge cases. So that's pretty much. So we have a logical action which would update name and fetch product name from product ID. So now we will create our reducer. So it would be demo reducer, demo reducer.js. So export const. So before that, let's add this Redux and React Redux into our project. So we are going to use React Redux immer. So I will explain you what immer is. So it's just used to maintain a immutable state. I will show what this is. So immer.js. So basically what this do is it provides a produce function and it takes a base state, so basically an object. It provides a draft state which would be a copy of the object. You make whatever changes you want in your draft state, and it will return the modified version into next state. So basically it will not touch base state, it would create a copy with all these changes into a next state. So you can probably look into this library. So we are going to use this library to maintain immutability of the store. So let's add this. So is equal to, so it would take state to take action, and then we are going to use produce. So for that, let's create first initial state. So const. So in the initial state, we are going to keep name as empty, product ID as empty, product name as empty, is loading as false, product loading error as empty. So we are storing 5 different states in initial state. So first one is name, the second one is product ID, the third one is product name that is going to fetch from the API. The fourth one is product loading. So this would be used to show the loading action or the load spinner or loading bar, whatever. And this would be for showing error, right? So we are going to use produce initial state and to import produce. Draft, so this provide a function. Now we write a switch case for all the action types. So case demo action types dot include this. Update name. So in that case, we are going to update the name of the draft from the action payload. So this is this payload is being sent from here dispatcher function, right? So action.payload name, and just break it from here. Similarly for case update product ID graph dot product ID is equal to product ID for loading. We are going to use graph product loading is equal to true. Yes. For success case, we are going to do loading to false and draft dot product name to, so this function, this is dispatching product name. and we are also going to do product loading error to empty, because we are already got success here. So and for case demo action, for failed, again we are going to do this. We are going to remove the product name, and the error would be the error from the payload. And default case for this would be just break. Okay, so our entire reducer action dispatcher for a demo is being ready. Now we need to create a root reducer that would include this demo reducer, and we will create a store for same. So we are going to create a new file for root reducer. uh, One more thing, we need to export this. Export default demo reducer. So here we are going to create a root reducer. This combine reducer. So we are going to provide demo reducer and then export root reducer. Now we create one more file which would be index.js. Here we are going to create a store. So const store is equal to create a store. With root reducer, we are going to import this, and we are going to export the store. So our entire Redux is ready. Now we need to wire this store to our app component, so that we are going to use in index. So here we are going to wrap app into with provider. Store is equal to store so we are going to import provider. So that's pretty much done. So our store is being wired to our app, and all our Redux is being wired to action dispatcher types and reducers. So now if you remember, we have created a dispatcher here which assume it has a dispatch object or a dispatch function to be precise, but we haven't initialized it, so we need to initialize this function. So for that we are going to create a function here, const initialize dispatchers is equal to, this function will take dispatch and this will assign this dispatch function to all the dispatchers. So here we are going to do demo action dispatcher dot dispatch is equal to dispatch. So now we are going to use this function. So dispatch is basically provided by using hooks use dispatch, and that is being used in our functional component. So we are going to initialize dispatchers in our app file. So this is our main functional component that's going to render. So we are going to define our dispatch here, use, so we are going to use this hook, this sorry, and then using use effects. So this use effect will take this dispatch and initialize the dispatcher here, which in turn will initialize all the dispatcher that we have. Typo. That's cool. So this would basically initialize it once. So that's why we are using use effects. So that's pretty much done here. Now we are going to in our demo component and we are going to wire these actions. So before that we are going to use hook use selector, which would provide necessary data from the store. So we are going to use selector. This is again a hook from React Redux. Just take a function which have a entire state. So this will be your root state. So this one. So we are going to only use the demo part. So we are going to return state.demo. So we have all the data of the demo reducer. In here, name, product ID, product name is product loading error. So we are going to use that in there. Name, product ID, product name, product loading, error. Now we will wire action for this input field. So value is equal to name on change, change. So we're going to create this function const on name change that takes the event. So const name is equal to we just fire the action of the demo action. So demo action dot update name, update name. So it would be e dot target dot value. So since there is async function, we can create a await. Or since we are not doing any await operation here, we can just make it non-async. So that's pretty much. On product ID, similarly, we are going to do value is equal to product ID and product ID change. Create one more function, const. So this is going to be a async function because our fetch product name from product ID is a async function. It's using await. So the target dot value. Now this being done, now we are going to write some logic here to show when it's loading, when it's error, and when it's product name fetched. So if is product loading, is product loading, okay. If it's product loading, then show loading product name for product ID else if product loading error, we are going to return product with ID. So here an ID be product ID, else if product name this return. Else just return okay. So let's see what's there on UI action. uh, okay, some error. React downloader. So I think there is some issue with this. So I think this provider needs to be imported from React Redux. Okay, it's working. So let's update name. So it's working. Just to make sure that this is firing from store, what we are going to do is we are going to add some logic here. So name plus tool. So it's working. Now let's see how about fetching product ID. So if I type in something, okay, you can see as I type, so it's loading. It's pretty fast, so it's not visible. If I type a fairly long ID, so it shows error product not found. So let's do something here. We are going to add a sleep function. Let's create a sleep function called sleep for milliseconds. New promise. Set timeout resolve in milliseconds. So that should do. So await sleep for 200 millis. So let's see how it looks like. So if I type in 1, okay, you can see like I type 2, showing loading product name for product ID 2 and then product with ID 2. Similarly, if I type 4, product not found, right? So that's it. So it's, you can see like we have a logical part in demo actions. So the action file would have logical part wherever you will do all the sync operation, fetching the API and all those stuff. Dispatcher, so for each types we will have a single dispatcher, and you can have more dispatcher that would dispatch actions, 2 or 3 actions at once. So but we have demo reducer, so for each of the action type it would perform some changes in the state. We have root reducer that would combine the reducer. So since we are just using a one reducer, a demo reducer, we can have multiple more reducers and we can just combine here. We have an index. So here we are initializing the dispatch, and this dispatch is coming from the app file. So from this dispatch, so that's pretty much. So that's the way you can use Redux without any middleware like Sagas and Thunk, and still be able to achieve the same functionality. So the way you would have do it in Saga is like you would have create a action watcher on one of the action, and then on that action you would have yielded the this action, this dispatcher you would have make an API call, then you would have dispatch this dispatcher, and then you would have dispatch this dispatcher based on condition. So here everything is synchronously working, and it's easy to debug as well. So probably you can add just some debuggers here and you can debug because there is no data flowing behind the scene or in background. So that's pretty straightforward. So yeah, that's all we have.